Hi, this is Chatterboxing. I'm Sean, and I'm going to talk today about yesterday's press conference with Kell, Brook, and Errol Spence. A few talking points, early thoughts on the fight. I'm not going to make my sort of breakdown prediction just yet. I'll do that later on. But this is just talking about what happened and some early things to think about. The press conference itself was very entertaining. Let's start with this Spencer character. He looks full of confidence, as I expected. I mean, he's unbeaten. He's won all his fights in style, pretty much. He's been basically blasting through people. He's obviously been sparring where he has sparred with the likes of Floyd Mayweather. I think the Charlo brothers. He mentioned Sean Porter, Lamont Peterson. So yeah, I mean, he's obviously been sparring with good people. Floyd Mayweather has endorsed him as the next big thing. He's very well supported in America. They're really getting behind him. So yeah, he's full of confidence. He thinks he's going to come over here and treat Kell Brook like Bundu, or well, I don't think he quite thinks that, but he thinks he's going to come over here and do a job on Kell Brook. Kell Brook, for his part, seems confident. He seems more than anything determined and I'd say a little bit angry. Not angry as in emotionally angry, but just determined to prove a point. And he seems quite offended almost by the stuff that people have been saying. The idea that he was going to vacate his belt, the idea that he was going to duck Errol Spence. I think that's got up his nose a little bit. And one thing we can say about Kell Brook is that he definitely loves his IBF belt. He's very proud of it. He got that. He was mandatory for it. He had to wait a long time. People often forget that when people keep talking about Errol Spence has had to wait so long. Kell Brook had to wait a long time. Yeah, he pulled out the Devon Alexander fight, but so did Devon Alexander as well. So he's had his ups and downs, a few injuries and stuff, but he had to wait a long time to get that, and he was never going to give that up. So he's fought 2 mandatory challenges before. So he was never really going to want to just give that up like that. So that's something that I always believed. Eddie Hearn and his team said that they wanted him to go up to 154 pounds because they thought that he was going to be healthier at that weight, but he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to pull a Canelo Alvarez and avoid a challenge to ducking someone to vacating his belt. So yeah, he deserves credit for that. I think he's a bit annoyed that he's not going to get credit for that, but it is what it is. You can't please everybody. The trainers both piped up as well, which was good. Dominic Ingle. I think Dominic Ingle's as pissed off, if not more, than Kell Brook is through all this, like what they consider a lot of disrespect. I mean, you have to consider that Dominic Ingle, I mean, he's known Kell Brook since he was a kid. I mean, like a child, like really young. So he's been trained. He probably sees Kell Brook almost like a son. So when he's seeing people, from his perspective, I mean, people can agree or disagree, but from his perspective, not giving him the credit he deserves, being very disrespectful to him, it's annoyed him. And you could see that in that press conference when he was arguing with your man, what's he called? Derek James, Spence's trainer, who to me seems like quite a funny character as well. I quite like it. I saw an interview with him on Bayloric television, and it was a telephone interview. He was talking for quite a long time, and he seems like quite a funny character. He seems like he knows what he's talking about. I think he may have miscalculated a couple of things, but yeah, he definitely seems like he's looking into it quite well, and he's quite an intelligent trainer. One thing he said, which I found quite funny, not in an interview with Bayloric, they were talking about the fans, and he said, "Yeah, I love it. I remember one time watching a football match in England, and obviously that's soccer for Americans, and he said the team that lost, their fans just like smashed up the stadium. So I know what to expect. I know what the British fans are like, and I know that passion and." To me, he seemed to almost relish that. He was talking about it like that was a great thing. Like he was very impressed by the fact that they just sort of smashed up the stadium because they lost. So I think, I mean, obviously it's one thing seeing it on TV and liking it, and another thing being there and liking it. But that's obviously not going to happen. They're not going to smash up the stadium or anything like that. But he knows that it's going to be very, very hostile, very, very loud, and a real, as we say in football terms, we say like a 12th man. You've got 11 players, and sometimes they say like the 12th man, like the crowd, because it makes that much of a difference. So you could argue in that context, obviously it's not. There's only 2 people in the ring, but it is going to be a big factor, and I'll get back to that later on. But yeah, Derek James seemed to be quite familiar with the scene over in the UK and quite complimentary and respectful of it. So yeah, fair play to him. I did like the little kind of back and forth with those two at the press conference. Dominic Ingle was a funny character as well. He did make a point which I kind of agree with, but I think he said that they were talking too much about Golovkin, and that was a loss, and it wasn't really something to glorify. Yeah, that's true, but what I would say to that is that really it was Adam Smith and Eddie Hearn going on about that more than anything else. And Adam Smith is the top man for Sky TV. Eddie Hearn is a promoter. So that's what they do, and they're trying to sell this fight to casual boxing fans in the UK on pay-per-view. So they talk about Golovkin. I don't really see that as being particularly relevant. That is Kell Brook talking about it. I mean, yeah, he might talk about it, but he's not seeing that as the pinnacle of his career. In terms of that, this is an interesting topic actually, that Golovkin fight. Since I brought it up, I might as well talk about that a little bit. In terms of going into this fight, because what's the word I'm looking for? The norm is that after a loss, the fighter would then go into the next fight having lost a bit of confidence, having kind of accepted defeat to some extent. So a lot of people will be thinking that will affect Kell Brook negatively in this fight. It could do, we don't know. But I think there's a good chance that it could have the opposite effect. People have made I might as well talk my man in Australia, MBT Boxing. Shout out to him. He's actually I've got a bet with him about this. We'll get to that in a bit as well. He said that Kell Brook had said in an interview that he'd really damaged Golovkin, and he'd I think, what's his name? Dominic Ingle mentioned it. I knocked the stuffing out of him, I think is what he said. Now, that is slightly deluded, and I agree with that. But he did give Golovkin a bit of a slap. I mean, he lost, but he definitely gave him a bit of gave him a few digs that other people hadn't really done. So, whether we agree with it or not, which most people obviously won't, in Kell Brook's mind is what matters. In his mind, I think he's sort of going into this thinking, oh yeah, these welterweights, they're basically a bit beneath me. Not in a kind of trying to be disrespectful, but yeah, they can't live with me. Look, I've gone there and I've basically softened up Golovkin for Danny Jacobs. Whether you agree with that or not, it's not really that relevant. Like in terms of the psychology of Kell Brook, because I believe that he believes that he went in there and basically put it on Golovkin and was unlucky that the fight didn't go the distance because of an injury. Now, the fact that the injury was caused by his opponent punching him in the face in a boxing match, obviously it is important. But still, he's going into this thinking, yeah, what's Errol Spence going to do to me? I think he sees him as obviously a very tough challenge. He brings a lot to the table, but I do think he's looking at him thinking, you're no Golovkin, mate, and you're not going to walk through me. That, to me, is important. And I think that is going to play a factor in the psychology of it. In terms of the injury, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know that much about that. I've heard some people say it will be a factor. I've heard other people say it will be stronger. So, yeah, I'm not really able to comment on that. I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. The crowd, this is going to be a big factor. Now, whether it's a big factor for Errol Spence remains to be seen. Now, Errol Spence, to me, I get the impression, now I don't know him, I haven't seen him at this level, I get the impression that he's very, very strong-willed. I think he's a very mentally strong man, and I think his personality seems to be someone that doesn't get carried away, doesn't get. He sort of reminds me in a way of Anthony Joshua. He's just very, very laid back, very calm, but very, very confident. And I don't see him as the kind of person that's going to go, from one extreme to the other. Do you know what I mean? So I think there are there are a lot of fighters who could come over from America, come out in front of a big crowd like that and shit themselves, basically. I could see that. Or the opposite, or getting really carried away and thinking, yeah, fuck you, and like really going for it like too much. I could see that happening because it's a very, very different atmosphere over here. So that, has to be taken into consideration. But I do think if anyone is mentally equipped to deal with that, I think Errol Spence is probably one of them. But we'll see. But that's my humble opinion, looking at him. I think it will have a bit of an effect on him. I think this is going to be like nothing he's ever experienced. When I saw an interview when he was saying that, he's been to Venezuela and the amateurs, he's been to Russia, he's been to that. It is going to be something new. It's going to be something very, very new and different, much more intense. So I'm not saying it won't have any effect on him, but all I'm saying is I think he is one of the people that will be able to deal with it best. I think where it's really going to come into play, it's really going to play a part, is the effect it's going to have on Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook, you see a lot of nonsense on here. People, talking rubbish, saying just making assumptions, talking about Brook's this, Brook's that. I understand the English character, and I know Kell. I've seen Kell Brook for a long time. Now he's quite, to me, he seems quite uncomfortable in terms of public speaking. He's getting better, but being in an environment where he's like a press conference and he's talking, he doesn't come across as the most naturally comfortable in that environment. And I think that's reflected. And I think people sometimes can misread something and say that he's uncomfortable for another reason. I don't believe that. I've seen him like that when, you think he has no reason to be in terms of the actual fight. He's come through gut checks before. So he's got it in him anyway. I mean, I like Carson Jones. The first Carson Jones fight, he got his nose busted in the I think like halfway through the fight. And Carson Jones at that point, I mean, Carson Jones for me is quite underrated in terms of as an opponent. I think Carson Jones, I've seen Carson Jones fight a few times. Big fan of Carson Jones. He's been in England. I've seen him fight loads of times in England. He's a tough, very, very determined, a real will to win, and he's a handful for anyone. Now they talk about Sean Porter, Chris Algieri. Carson Jones would beat the shit out of Chris Algieri, in my opinion. You put those two in the ring, I put my money on Carson Jones all day long. Now, I'm not saying Carson Jones is better or as good as Errol Spence. What I am saying is that at that point, Kell Brook had never really fought anyone that had that kind of will to win and that physically imposing and strong, big. And he really put it on Kell Brook, and Kell Brook had a broken nose, but he just stuck in there and really showed a good determination and resolve. And he hadn't really prepared for that fight at all. That was like a turning point. He said after that, now I need to get a nutritionist. I need to really start taking a bit more seriously. And that, for me, had a big effect on him going forward. He was a much better fighter after that. So he's shown even at that point that he was able to really dig deep and pull out a win. So getting back to what I was saying about Sheffield United, people need to understand, if you're from other places in Europe, you've got that same football culture, then yeah, you will understand. I think this is Sheffield United. First of all, this is where his uncle took him there as a kid and said, you're going to fight here. This is a long-term dream. This basically represents his community. This is what everybody wants to do. So if you know anything about the football culture over here, it's very, very passionate, people fight for it all the time. You go to Sheffield United Saturday, people are fighting all the time over this. This is anywhere all over the country. This is not a place where you're going to be an easy man to beat. Now, Kell Brook being from Sheffield, fighting at Bramall Lane, with his belt, everything's been said about him. This is going to be a very, very, very difficult man to beat. And for your first step up in a different climate, different time, ridiculous atmosphere, someone your own size, this is a big, big ask for Errol Spence. He's going to need to be everything that you Americans are saying that he is. Maybe he is. I mean, for me personally, if he wins this fight, then he is going to be the man. I mean, I would say, because you can say Keith Thurman has he's beat, but no, Keith Thurman won't have done anything like this. Manny Pacquiao, of course, Manny Pacquiao is on his own level in terms of the welterweights at the moment, but he's 40 years old. He's at the end of his career. He's a congressman, so he's kind of separate. Talking about the young guns. If Errol Spence comes over, beats Kell Brook at Bramall Lane, then he will be the fucking man. As far as I'm concerned, he'll be the man to beat. And same for Kell Brook. If he beats, he already is in my. He's not the man to beat in terms of he's proven it, but I think he's the best in terms of skill. So yeah, that is going to be a very, very big ask. It's going to be a tough fight for both of them, but I think you need to understand just the task at hand and that mental aspect. Having those 30,000 fans cheering him on, and really that energy is going to be in there. What that's going to give to Kell Brook, who already has a tremendous spirit. Now, this is something as well. It's not me sort of, like we're the greatest, like trying to build our like rule Britannia. But one thing we do have, and we've always had in general, we haven't always, like when we're competing against the Americans, usually when you go back through history, the Americans have been more skilled and you've had like a better quality of fighters. But one thing we've always had is a lot of spirit and a lot of determination and real difficult people to beat with a lot of heart. So if you think that Kell Brook is going to be easy to beat and he's just going to walk through that fight, then you're deluded, basically. In terms of who I think is going to win, well, I made a bet actually. A couple of my YouTube mates have made a bet with me. My man MBT Boxing over in Australia, he challenged me. I mean, he's a nice bloke, bit deluded. He thinks Errol Spence is going to win this fight, but nobody's perfect. He's saying that if Errol Spence wins this fight, if by some absolute miracle or some Illuminati conspiracy, Errol Spence manages to pull off one of the greatest upsets in boxing history to beat Kell Brook, then I'm going to have to change the name of my channel for 1 week to Errol the Truth Spence. And if Kell Brook wins, he's gonna, and my man in America, Black Fight Fan TV, he's on it as well. These two are gonna have to change the name of their channel to Special K Brook for a week as well, because there are two of them and there's only one of me. I'm gonna have to change as well my profile picture to something that they choose. Presumably gonna be, if by, as I say, by some absolute miracle, the impossible happens, it's going to be probably a picture of Errol Spence, knocking out Kell. But it's not going to happen. Don't worry about it. But yeah, so that's challenge me. The challenge accepted. It's not going to happen. But as I say, if it does, then that's why. If you come on here and see, like, I've not just jumped on the bandwagon and become some Errol Spence fanboy. It's for a bet. But all jokes aside, I do think that this is a very tough one to call, and although I am going with Kell Brook, obviously I'm supporting him and I'm favouring him. I'll be honest with you, I'm not like 100% confident about it. I'm certainly not going to pretend that I think this is going to be, I know what's going to happen, because Errol Spence is, he's got a lot going for him. He's a big bloke, strong, fast, powerful, skillful, unbeaten. He's got a lot of momentum behind, a lot of self-belief, mentally very strong. Do you know what I mean? He's got a lot going for him. Kell Brook as well, obviously, with the weight issue, the potential injury. So who knows? But, it is what it is. I'm going with Kell Brook. I do think he's going to win, but being perfectly honest, hand on heart, I'm not 100% confident about it. I'm not going to pretend that I am. When the fight gets made, when it's closer to the fight, I'll make a breakdown and a prediction. And yeah, that's I can't think if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, I don't think there is at the moment. If there is, if I want to say something else about it, I'll probably make another video later on. But yeah, let me know what you lot think about this. Thank you very much for watching.